as if by magic. As if by magic, we are live to the world, and this weird thing once again, because it's all old hat to you people that do YouTube and things like that all the time. Seeing yourself on multiple screens at once is still very off-putting. Karl has joined us, but he's dealing with a little tech issue there at the moment. Hopefully, you are seeing his lovely little face at the corner of your screens with his big mug of coffee. I've already had the coffee, so I'm onto the Coke Zero now. So yeah, are you happy there, Mr. Karl?
I've muted YouTube now, but I can see what we're doing. I can see a lovely box on the screen at the
Isn't
moment.
it lovely? It's all very flash and fancy. Well, for those folks who have joined us, and thank you already, there are several of you lurking in the background. Karl, in case you don't know, is the man behind Crooked Dice 7 TV, a tabletop war game which is built around the idea of a TV show. Baron, I've forgotten his name. Baron what?
Sydney Baron. He's
Sydney
based on Lou Grade, if that means anything to the kids out there.
to the kids who are hip and trendy. And the idea is that all his TV shows, they were kind of obscure, off the wall, and the station eventually fell into disarray. But the reels of footage from the old shows have all been found, and each of 7 TV's core sets kind of deals with a different genre. I think 7 TV Apocalypse is based around the idea of his son taking over the studio and getting into the whole grungy apocalypse idea.
It's the video nasties of the 80s. That his son, Michael Baron, not Michael Grade, absolutely not. Michael Baron then takes into a bit of a US market. So it's a bit of a proto kind of Hammer stuff, but real video nasties and apocalyptic movies of the 80s, really.
The nice thing about Apocalypse TV, of course, as well, is that it's not a prescribed apocalypse. It can be whatever apocalypse you want.
Absolutely.
The term is quite loosely used, but it's certainly end of the world cataclysmic stuff.
Yeah, you can do anything with it, from like 50s atomic horror, giant ants, and that kind of thing, to cyborgs that will not stop, to leather chap wearing motorcyclists with Mohicans, to triffids and monsters and anything in between. So yeah, we're not prescriptive about what you want. You have to play with it at all.
Do like the triffids thing. I'm just going to give them the blurb on the back of the box. And for those who join us on the Wee Gamers page, you're probably quite used to the fact that Karl and I normally talk absolute mad dog. But we're running on the premise that, considering we're experimenting with going live on YouTube, there might actually be 1 or 2 new faces. So we thought we'd do a slight recap about what Crooked Dice is and kind of
professional.
Yeah, I'm actually offering some vague air of professionalism for you. So the blurb on the back of the box: 7 TV Apocalypse is a tabletop skirmish war game inspired by the mini apocalypse spectacles of television and cinema. Hurtle across the tabletop in bikes, muscle cars and trucks, or fight as survivors, mutants, raiders, angels and zombies at the end of days. Game contents: 1 director's guide, 1 producer's guide, 1 stuntman guide, 130 profile cards, 5 vehicle templates, 45 countdown cards, 20 gear cards, 20 mutation cards, 36 vehicle mod cards, 20 plot cards, 27 status and objective tokens, 1 blast turn template, 1 MacGuffin token, 6-sided dice, 3 skid dice, 1 crash dice. I got through it in one breath. I know, it's when you read the back of this, you think, is he competing with Fantasy Flight for content?
Stop it now.
Get a cease and desist. Stop you producing stuff with so many things. The one thing you'll notice that this box doesn't say is it doesn't have miniatures. And that, of course, is because, well, 2 things really. The apocalypse can be anything you want it to be, and as such, the miniatures you use can be anything you want as well. And we'll get into that when we look at the because I think the profile cards is what it really needs to be brought home to people, that you can use any miniatures. Obviously, we'd love you to use the Crooked Dice miniatures.
Yeah, of course. But when I did the set, I didn't have miniatures for everything. As part of the Kickstarter, we did about 100. Managed to squeeze most of them in before we printed it. But I got permission to use lots of other people's kind of stuff as well. And if you're anything like me, I've still got my old Grenadier Future Wars, my old Cobblestone stuff, which is my kind of default for anything. So use whatever you like. Just give it a go.
Give it a go. Well, listen, this is your baby. So where would you like me to start? I have all the components sitting out around me. So what would you like me to throw on the screen first? Do you want to start with the rule books? Do you want to start with the cards? Where would be a good starting point?
Director's guide then.
Director's guide, not a problem. So popping onto your screens now, folks, is, you'll notice, book 1. Don't be intimidated. It's not hugely thick. And this is the director's guide. Now,
40 pages, that is.
Before Karl kicks off, one of the things that I always love about the books that come out from Crooked Dice is they are crammed full of loads of pictures, because I always struggle with the big joined up words like read this first and stuff. So it's always nice to have plenty of pictures, but it's good inspiration for getting your painting done. There's the table of contents. You can hit pause if you're watching this later, and if not, you can rewind later on and watch it, but it runs through. So the director's guide is pretty much for your guidance on running the games.
Yeah, that's the core rules and the core mechanics. And it's probably worth saying that they are largely the same between all of the 3 different box sets and the 4th one that will be out next year. They all use the same core mechanics. So in theory, you could play an Apocalypse cast against a Pulp cast or against an Inch High Spy-Fi cast if you wanted to. And we've tried to balance things as best we can. There's a few tweaks here and there, but that's mainly for tone, or to try and get the kind of the genre across more than anything else in there. But yeah, you've got the basic bits in there. So you'll have how to activate in there, the statuses that you've got, the basic turn sequence, and the countdown phase, which is fairly unique to 7TV. The size of your playing area dictates the number of countdown cards that you play out in there, and each time a player has their turn, they turn over one of those cards, and it's got a little cinematic. This is where the kind of meta part of the game is about making the TV show. So the one that I've got on the back here is blow your budget. There you go, and that's one of the finale cards, and that gives a little cinematic one-off effect just to get a bit of kind of tone, just to remind you that you're making a TV show. And they're divided into 3 acts. Act 1 is largely about movement. Act 2 is about combat, and the finale, everything just goes mad at that point. And it's big cinematic explosions and effects and that kind of thing. So that's the countdown sequence in there.
I suppose just when you're on the countdown cards, I suppose it's worth bringing home to the fact as well, as much as these determine this, as you think you said it very briefly, the size of your table determines how many countdown cards to use, but the countdown cards themselves control how long the game lasts.
Yeah, once the cards have gone, the game's over.
It's over. But am I right as well that it's kind of optional? The flavor text that's on the back, whilst it's themed to, generally in this case, the apocalypse, you can kind of just play it quite cold and literally at the appropriate time turn over the card, and just that's marked that period of time has passed. Move on, move on, move on.
Yeah, you can do that if you want to. If you think, because there's sometimes where in the game there won't be certain things in play, so the countdown card won't have an effect, for example, in there. But yeah, there's also a mechanic in there that if you want to tactically, once per game, you can steal the scene, which means you get to turn over you get to go twice, but also you can turn over kind of 2 cards. If you think, actually, I might win this and I want to speed the end of the game in, at certain stages you can turn over extra cards as well.
And that all adds to that dramatic flavour of it being a TV show. It's kind of the momentum's there, so you keep on going with it, and it maybe works.
The joy of these is the randomness of it, which you think, God, how would you be able to manage that, within a fairly scripted, game where essentially you're working kind of through a manual, but it makes the play really fly backwards and forwards between the two players, and people really like these because of that. It adds a kind of a slightly anarchic twist to stuff. Because 70 is a fun game. It's really not a tournament game, and it's not meant to be, for real kind of beardy gamers in that way. It's people that like a bit of narrative, kind of action in there, and like to play the genre. I was lucky with the guys that I gamed with for years, is that we always played the genre to the detriment of the character that we were ever kind of playing in there. And I think that's probably seeps through into the way that 70V's built as well.
Well, that's one of the things that I got to say I do like about it, because it is a you take a go, I take a go game, and it's I get my turn, then you get your turn. For a lot of people, that nowadays can be quite a slow method of play, but the act cards actually cause that to sort of move quite quickly, and they add a drama to that wouldn't otherwise be there.
Yeah, it's always a problem with You Go I Go games in there, but we'd kind of built it that way in its previous version. But we were really aware of that when we did second edition, and when Graham did the first kind of intro Spy-Fi, we really tried to build in a lot more interaction between the players in every turn. So the first thing that I would do if I wanted to hit one of your models is that you would roll for a defense total, and that's what I've got to beat when I roll my attack dice. So there's a little bit more going on between the pair of you, rather than just 4 up rolls or something. So we tried to get a little bit more interaction in there as much as we can. And there's extra things like the plot points. Plot points, which are these little bag of beads, but you can use whatever you like. You get a number of those depending on the cast members that you've got, because the sort of pyramid of profiles is stars, co-stars, extras. So you'd get 2 for a star, 1 for a co-star, and you get half for an extra rounded up. So you get a number of those, and you can use those for various different things. You can use them to activate each model. So spend one of those, and our model gets 2 actions. And from that point, people will be fairly familiar if they played either any of the games, or actually most war games. You get 2 actions to do them: move, shoot, fight, whatever. But you can also use them to power other things, like every model or stars and co-stars have got special effects or a star quality, and some of those have got a little star next to one another. He said, trying to find one. Tank zombie there. See that little thing there? That symbol there? That's a plot point. So it means that some abilities cost. So that's really, for us, it's just a costing mechanism. If something's particularly powerful, it might have an additional cost on it. So you can use them for that. You can use them to power some of your gadgets or your gear, as they are in that. You can also use them to buy extra dice for yourself when you're doing your attack and defense rolls. So if you really, really want to damage that giant tank zombie that's coming around the corner, you might want to buy extra attack dice. Or if you know someone's about to attack you with a heavy weapon, you might want to pile in and buy some extra defense dice with those plot points. So there's a resource management element to the game as well, which is all done through those.
So I was just trying to fish out a couple of the cards there, because you were going like a train wreck. So I wasn't able to find the tank zombie in time, but I threw out the natural leader to kind of exemplify that too. And that's the thing on the star value. This is the other sort of, I suppose, oddity with 7TV over other games. Rather than sort of we're playing to X number of points, you're building your cast to a certain star value. And isn't it, it's like 20 points if you want a wee quick, just kind of get a feel for what it's all about game. And then isn't it like 50 is sort of the ballpark average?
I tend to play with about 30, which is about 8 models or so, which is that's a good entry point at that point, and they're called ratings. So it's just a point system. Sorry. Again, it's throughout 70V, the basic wargaming terms that you'll see, like, I don't know, hero, champion, and troop are replaced with star, co-star, and extra, and the point systems are called ratings. And we're just kind of using those terms in there to give a bit of tone to it. But yes, so there you go. The Reluctant Guardian there. You can see that card.
Yep.
Down the bottom there, he's got his 10 ratings. Stars generally are about 10 ratings. Co-stars about half that. And then the extras will range anything between kind of 1, and I think there's a couple in there for 7, depending on kind of what they are. There's like a giant war machine in there, which is 7 ratings or something.
Then you can buy some of your extras as entire units, which kind of makes them a little bit cheaper too.
Yeah. Some of them kind of get a unit bonus, like like a bog standard minion or something. Might be 2 ratings on its own, but if you buy 3 of them, you'll get them for 5 ratings.
Well, there's the Grunt Unit, just as an example, to throw it up there. Grunt Unit, Jarheads, Ground Pounders, or Town Militia, useful additions to any survivor group, handy in a firefight, and useful to train others in the art of war. A Grunt Unit consists of the following models: 1 leader, 4 to 7 grunts, and not to 1 heavy grunts if you want to throw something with a bit more punch in there as well. And there's a whole host of those. And I suppose now is a good time to mention, for those who are maybe starting to spot the artwork, that 7TV does like to pay a certain homage.
But it does.
A certain homage to some perhaps better known or lesser known stars of the silver screen. We can look at a few of them later too, because I've got a couple.
Inspired by those, yes.
Yes. Fueled, not driven by, but fueled. And it's one of the nice things too, that for plot points, I like the fact that if you manage to down an enemy's star or co-star, you actually get a plot point reward for that as well.
Yeah, which it's linked to the points as well. They're tough stars. They've got the key statistic you're using all the time is defense. That's high. There's a couple of points higher than everybody else. But the way that the dice mechanic works in there is that you only need the odd point now and again just to make that difference. So you get rewards for that if you take them out.
Yeah, just when you mention that, I've got the table up there for stat tests, because the tests are all based around 8. So you'll have your statistic value, and then the target number is always the difference between your stat value and 8. But you're rolling on D6s, so if you're spending plot points, you're getting an extra dice, but the extra dice doesn't numerically add. If you get a success, it's worth +1. Am I right?
So that's the statistic table there. The key thing you'll be using all the time, if we go back to that card, is this strike value here in the middle. So what you do is you will roll, if you make an attack, you'll always roll 1d6. You might be able to roll more than that in there, and you take the highest face value of the die. You add that to your strike, and then if you're rolling more dice, any 4+ gets you a +1 added to that number as well. So that total. So let's say I've got a strike of 10, and I roll a 4. Let's say I roll a 6, and it's 16, but you also roll 2 4s, that will bump that up to an 18. Does that make sense?
Yep. Well, it does to me. Hopefully it does to them. They're staying very quiet. There's watchers, but they're not saying much. They're taking it all in, hopefully. or I've missed something subtle and they're going, I can't hear anything. No, I've read the post-it note this morning. We're hearing sound. Okay, so the director's guide is our core rules. So that's going to take people through the start and finish of the game. So the producer's guide then is, like, I suppose for most people, it's your player's handbook, really.
Yeah, that gives you a little bit of kind of behind the scenes bit. So first of all, it gives you a little bit of background into our kind of pretend studio, kind of Baron Studios in there. And then here, this is kind of the world building bit that you might want to then apply to your game. So it's, this gives you a quick overview of the different types of playing kind of era that you might want to play in there, and the different types of apocalypse that you might get. Then it gives you, beautifully illustrated, gives you 2 or 3 different examples of how you can theme the game, because this is all generic. You can play whatever you like, right? But some people don't like that. They prefer to have a little bit more kind of structure to their stuff and get more inspiration. So we've given 3 different examples of how you can take some of these base archetypes and make and play different types of show. So we've got Planet of the Fungoids, which is essentially a zombie one, but it's with plant zombies. In there, we've got Radland Races, which is a kind of a mad vehicles rush across a different wasteland, fighting it out in there, which is a little kind of Mad Max Wacky Races.
And can I just interject, Karl? That needs to be a poster. I need to be able to order that from Crooked Dice and put that on my wall.
Yeah, no, that's Stefan again, and that's beautiful. Several times I thought to myself, I must be doing more with that because it's absolutely wonderful.
Yeah.
And then Stefan we also did Highway for Hell. So this is a bit more supernatural kind of style things. Michael Douglas, rather than Highway to Heaven, is Highway to Hell. So you've got Michael Douglas, and it's quite literally a road movie of him encountering different supernatural threats. So there you've got zombies, you've got Mad Max, you've got angels and demons and weird beastie kind of things in there, different types of apocalypse of examples that we've given. And then the rest of the book is dedicated to how to build a cast in there. So that's your faction that you've got, explaining how ratings work and how the different genres work in it. And then examples of the characters you've got, how to customize those. And then at the back, you've got a few more games in this. I mean, we call games episodes in there, as if you're kind of playing a series. And there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There are 6 kind of skirmish ones, and then 2 vehicle-specific ones in there. So that back section of it is, this is how you set up a game, this is how you create your table, this is how you figure out what the victory conditions are, and then there are half a dozen different battles where we say, this is the type of thing you're going to play, this is how to set it up, this is what the victory condition is going to be. So we give some examples, generic scenarios that you can play straight out of the box.
So I mean, just to bring that home for people, what we're sort of saying here is, as much as you will look through these books, and take like the Planet of the Fungaloids for a prime example.
Yeah.
A lot of people liked, as you quite rightly say, they like to open and be told what to do until they find their feet and then can kind of go play. But if you open this and you go, well, I'd like to have a go at this, but I don't have any of his miniatures. Look, it doesn't matter. If you're sitting with this and you're going to do Planet of the Fungaloids to get your head around the rules, go and grab the 10 or 15 miniatures of the shelf. I mean, for Fungaloids, you could easily use zombie miniatures out of, if you've got, I mean, there's me sitting, I've actually got Walking Dead zombies in front of me at the minute. You could use the survivors to be your hero cast. And the only thing you need to remember is that if you've used, like if it says, I can't remember the particular characters, but I'm just trying to grab one quickly here. Right, say one of your characters is this chap here, Egghead. Okay, the card is giving you Egghead stats. And whilst there's a picture of a Crooked Dice miniature, which Karl and the team felt was appropriate to that, you could just as easily say, well, that's the miniature I've got, that's my Egghead character. So don't feel that you're tied or limited or somehow losing out by not having the set miniatures. The cards are generic for the character. They're not like, this is Jeff, this is John, this is Susan. It is styles of character, and you can use whatever miniature makes you happy, and your favourite miniatures.
Yeah, absolutely. And I get some people, when I talk to them at shows, they look at me like I'm a complete nut for saying, you can use other bits and pieces, things with it. And younger players sometimes who have come up through the kind of GW ranks in there where you've got to have that, can only be that kind of model.
Yeah.
I'm old, so, we only had half a dozen models, and we used that elf champion for absolutely everything until we got more models. That doesn't bother me particularly. Just have a good game, and you can have a few games with whatever you've got in there to get the hang of it, see whether you like it, and then once you've played with some different profiles, you go, oh yeah, that's the kind of cast that I would like to field on a regular basis. Then invest in whatever models you want to do it, hopefully ours, but if not,
exactly. I mean, well, this is the nice thing. So many of the Crooked Dice miniatures lend themselves just as readily to so many other things. I mean, I'm actually painting up. I've got them, and I'll show them on the table towards the end here. But I recently got a few, like Militia 1 and Militia 2, obviously. And as I was working through Militia 2, I was just looking at them thinking, these guys would so lend themselves to a 40k player who is doing Imperial Guard. As really sort of hardened kind of veterans, they've clearly been through the grinder 2 or 3 times. A nice tight little squad, things like that, or even your Militia 1. That if you're that kind of player, and for me, it's about getting extra value. So if I was going to do 40k, I would use Militia 1 and Militia 2 as Imperial Guard figures, because
Yeah.
I can see them being pressed into service in some sort of planetary defense force just as easily as I can see them standing beside a wooden palisade keeping out a bunch of zombies in 7TV. You know?
Yeah, make your lead work for you. Is get as much use as you can.
Yeah. Milk it for everything. Speaking
Exactly.
of milking it for everything, the one where I can do the best example of that is, of course, Book 3, which is the new one for 7TV.
Yeah, this so Apocalypse was our second box set. We tried to give something different in each one, and the Stuntman's Guide is full contact vehicle combat for it. In Inch High Spy-Fi, they're probably more like deployment cards. Is probably the best way to describe them. In this, it's not. You get okay. So you've got a series of profile cards, vehicle profile cards now in it. Which have got their own stats for so that you can ram things and sideswipe them and T-bone them in there. Got their own stats. A little thing at the end there, which is kind of a little gearbox to tell you it's kind of what mode you're kind of travel you're in as well. And then on the back of that, much like the other profile cards, you've got the special effects that particular thing has got, and then this little tick box thing on the back there is so that you can use the vehicle modification cards in there.
There we go.
So you can pimp your ride there and add on your rocket launcher and machine guns and tombstone and mind droppers and I don't know. I think there's 5 or 6 different bits and pieces that you can get that you can basically modify different locations on the back of your card. So engine, body, chassis, and so on in there. Yeah, the hood, the trunk, that kind of thing.
One of the things I particularly like about this, and I'm going to try and exemplify it here, is that obviously I've got a truck. Okay, well, I've got the truck and I've got the racer card. So on your table, cue gratuitous painted miniature opportunity. On your table, you may well have your car chasing the truck on the highway, okay? But where do you put your miniatures? With the truck, it's not so bad. You can kind of go, well, look, there's space for a miniature, but then, well, there's maybe only space for one. Off the side of the table, you'll see on those templates the little greyed out circles, and that is so that you can then take the miniatures that are in that vehicle and stick them on the appropriate space on the car. And again, with the car with less space, there's only 3 circles, so you can decide. And if this is obviously if you've that many people in it, and their arcs of fire and whatnot are again determined by where they are in the vehicle, much as if they were on foot too. So the guys in the front can see out the front and out the sides. The guys out the back can see out the back or out the sides. This is an open top van, so I'm guessing the guys in the back of a truck actually have the 180, or is it the 360 arc of fire if they're in the open back truck?
It's determined by the mod and the weapon and stuff that you put onto the top. I think we are saying, yeah, if you're in the open back of it, I think you get kind of all round fire, if I remember rightly.
I think that's right.
But the drivers only get to fire out of their side. It's the real tricky thing with vehicle combat stuff in there is the vehicle that you've got on the table won't look like the card. Again, these are meant to just be kind of generic, really. But you do want to get a vague sense of where you're. Yeah. The crew that you've got when you're firing on, because it might be that you can't get a model to sit on the top of your lovely interceptor there without falling off. So it's that exciting bit. So we explain that in the Stuntsman Guide and say just make have a gentleman's agreement between your sides about the size of your vehicle and where they're facing and that kind of thing in there.
Aye, because the cards are sort of loosely. I mean, the truck card isn't just saying a truck; it's kind of supposed to represent a class of vehicle that suggests that size.
Yeah. So, and we've done them they kind of scale up from bike, buggy, racer, which is your kind of interceptor kind of thing, truck, and then a big rig. So if you want your war rig kind of thing in there, and and they are generic classes that you can say, you know, let's say a Mini Cooper. Well, that's probably a buggy, but your Ford Cortina is a racer. But they're generic classes.
I like the idea too, and I mean I've chatted to a couple of the guys about this. I mean the war rig kind of makes sense that if you wanted to, you could very easily see how you could create your own card at home to represent a trailer for that. You know,
yes,
with
there is. I think there's a trailer mod that you can put on that allows you to put more people on the back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I love the idea of literally a fight, rather like Mad Max, taking place as these vehicles are all rolling along on the road.
Well, that's the thing that I kind of wanted to do with this. You've got the vehicle combat bit, but I like the guys jumping between the vehicles. That's the cinematic bit, which seemed very 7TV.
Yeah.
I kind of try and get that in there. As soon as you start to mix foot models and vehicle models, it always gets a bit exciting just to try and kind of map it. Map all the action.
Well, I think in our mind, our take on it is that if you end up on the ground, you're literally swept away from the action. Unless you can make a a body roll. Would you reckon make a body roll to grab on to another vehicle in the convoy,
drag along,
and climb yourself back up? So we think we've got our head around. We can make it very gratuitous in that regard. So no, definitely I love that. But I just like the cards off to the side dealing with the figures, because I think, for photographs and that, it doesn't make sense to have a guy stand on top of your car if he's driving it. But on the side photographs, to have him on his template card, and everyone then can sort of see at home, oh yeah, well that guy's in that car that's over there on the table. I think that makes...
It abstracts it out a little bit in there, but at least it gets you, it's a way of just dealing with some of those rules about, well, where exactly is this guy? Where is that model sitting in that thing at that time, which you kind of need to know as well, because as you say, who was it? It was the brilliant Mike Jarvis. When we were testing this at one of the War Games Illustrated days, his big rig was an Ankylosaurus with a big thing on the back, where his models were kind of in that. So yeah, this is a dinosaur. And he had loads of pieces of guys in a howdah kind of thing on the back of it. Well, you can't quite map that to what that looks like on the card. So you sort of have to decide, okay, is it we're going to play that we've got vehicles that are big enough that where they are on the vehicle is where you're going to play it? Or are we going to say you're abstracting it out to the side there? And you can, it's whatever style of play you prefer, really. But it kind of works.
Yeah, big lumps of blue tack. I'd love to have the time at some point, because whenever I read the vehicle rules and that, and bearing in mind the whole nature of 7TV, I would love to have done a diorama with like a car model cut away, the miniature in it, a couple of camera crew to the side, and you know the old-fashioned rolling backdrop where you've got the guy cranking the handle and the screen's going past the car, just to bring home that this is how it's, whilst we're playing a tabletop game, in reality, if this was a TV show, this is how it should be happening.
I can't remember if there's a countdown card of rolling background, and if there isn't, I've really missed a trick.
Now I want to go and look and see. Do it later. I'll do it later. So no, the Stuntman Guide is class, because that brings it in, and that sort of then, obviously, going back to what's in your core box, that kind of brings home where the template then comes into play.
Yeah. So we had a blast template. In fact, it is a blast template in there, but on that, I don't know whether you're going to be able to see that, because it's slightly see-through.
They're seeing it here on the screen now, because I've thrown it onto the box.
Yeah, so that basically just determines the amount of how you manoeuvre. So on that template, you've got like an easy turn, a hard turn, or a handbrake turn, where you turn kind of like 180 in there. And depending on the speed that you're going, so the difficulty that you've got, and the amount of manoeuvres that you make in a single turn, kind of determines the difficulty and how many of these new kind of skid dice, and we've got a crash dice as well. Now, the whole point of this, which isn't really explicitly in there, but once you've played a couple of games, you really get the hang of it, is you really want to be avoiding at all costs to re-rolling these dice. So you either do that by going slower, or by not making as many turns. Of course, if you're mental, and as we were playtesting this, the wonderful Matt Slade said to me, all I want to do is roll these all the time. And the result of these will be that you might be able to break, or you'll skid a distance, or if you're unlucky enough to draw the one that's got the little skull and crossbones one, you'll roll the black crash dice. And as soon as you do that, you're in trouble, basically. Now, rather than you do lose health, but what you might be able to do is you crash and turn over. You may lose your driver or your passenger. You may lose some of the vehicle mods that you've got on as they get crushed and ruined as they go over. Or if it gets slightly worse, you might start to lose health off of your vehicle. But yeah, the whole kind of point and the mechanics are all built so that you try to avoid rolling these. So the special effects that some of the stars and co-stars and some of the extras have got are from a new, what do they call it now? There's a new pool of special effects, which I think is called Wheelman. Yeah. So a load of those allow you to re-roll those dice or roll less dice or whatever in there, so that you've got your dedicated driver profiles as well to allow you to get through the white line nightmare, really.
Now, did I read it right? Forgive me if I have got it wrong. I kind of got it. You can have as many vehicles you want, but you obviously need people to drive them. And whilst any model can drive a car, it takes a wheelman model or wheel person model, whatever way you want to say it, to be able to drive a car in Apocalypse TV with a degree of skill. Yeah. So
you find that out really quickly as well. Yeah. And you go, any idiot can get in. I think you have to have a mind of two or more. So
that's it. Yes. Yeah.
Scooby-Doo clearly can drive. But if not, if you've got models that have got some of those wheelman special effects, your vehicle combat will last a lot longer. Well, hopefully. So yeah, that's kind of like mixed and fed into it as well.
I just love the fact that you put beautiful dice in the game and literally don't know you don't want to be rolling, but I want to roll them. They're pretty, but they're bad. Yeah, but I still want to roll them.
That's the joy of them. But yeah, they're quite cool.
You've made them the attractive thing that everyone wants to use, and yet they know it's going to bring them bad.
It will only bring you woe.
We didn't mention mutation cards. I've just realised.
Sorry, that's my email going on.
Oh, yes.
Eric Idle.
Eric Idle again. So the mutation cards work much like, essentially like gear cards, but for your mutants, really, and have a range of things, some of which I can't be sure why you would bother picking them.
You've got two things in there. You've got gear cards. Now, if you've played Intro Spy Fighter, these are essentially gadgets in there. So it will tell you when to play them, if they've got a plot point cost, and what the outcome of that kind of thing is. But there were some times, it was when I was writing the profiles for it, there were things that were clearly kind of, you'd want it to have kind of weird special effect, but a gear card clearly wasn't the right thing to have, you know. If you've got mutants or demons or whatever, you really wanted something else. So that's where there's there's an additional deck of mutation cards. So you've got 2 heads, Warcrawler, Tentacle, Healing Factor, Mind Reader. I know that Wayne Bollins has kind of used these a little bit for sort of superhero things as well.
Yep, I was literally going to say to you, my next breath after I swallowed my Coke was to say, as soon as I read these, I was thinking, I could do superheroes.
You can a little bit. These are they're one-off. It's to give you a kind of advantage in there. Again, when I was writing the profiles, I was finding that to get a balance in there, you know, soldiers or something might have gear, but you really wanted your mutants and other guys to have the equivalent kind of thing of. So they use the same mechanics. I didn't want another set of mechanics for mutations in there as well that you had to learn. So they do the same thing. So again, a little bit abstracted. You can understand that you might be only able to use a zip line, but once. You might go 2 heads. Why can I only use that one? But you know, it's an abstraction in there. But they work quite nice, and that's for a bit of game balance in there. So yeah, you've got those which are extra, not in any of the other sets.
Nope, cool. Well, before you depart, we will very quickly now. I do not offer these as an example of painting. I offer these merely to exemplify some of Karl's miniatures. there is the Interceptor in one of the versions that you can build it. It's a resin kit, comes multi-part, hood, bonnet, tombstone, exhausts, front grille, engine are all separate pieces, and there's various ways you can put that together for your Road Warrior kind of games. This isn't one of Karl's, this is just one of Mantic's little Walking Dead plastic cars, actually supposed to be for terrain, but it's too good to pass up, and using a couple of Karl's pieces, dollied that up, and again, another one from the Mantic line, and again, see, there was so many bits that he gave us that it was able to just get carried away with a machine gun on the roof of that as well. But, you know, anything that's sort of 28mm car, lorry, truck is going to work for you because the size is kind of irrelevant.
Yeah, there's probably enough bits with the basic Interceptor to clad about 3 vehicles if you wanted to. There's lights and various bits. In fact, they probably wouldn't all fit on one anyway.
No.
Yeah, well, I'm getting the picture now because there's a bit behind.
There's a wee bit of lag.
So you can just, that, any die-cast cars that you've got. I mean, we do, how many vehicles have I got there? I've got different buggy, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I know I've got maybe 12, few more different vehicles in there. But you're bound to have stuff at home, or you can pick stuff up. I mean, that's the joy of Gaslands, because that was all coming out while I was sort of writing this. I didn't look at it because I didn't want to be kind of influenced, but just picking up those little Hot Wheel things, great. And it's the same. You can get decent 128 cars out there as well.
But again, and I'm glad you mentioned Gaslands, because what I was going to say was, of course, if you're going to get yourself some vehicles for Apocalypse TV, why not pick yourself up Gaslands? Because you know what? You can play Gaslands using vehicles this size as well. You just need a slightly bigger playing area. In terms
or use your Gasland. If you're not really playing with skirmish people and you just want to try out the vehicle ones, then the scale doesn't really make any difference. So use those Hot Wheel ones if you want to just give.
Just for a last shot, throw up some Crooked Dice minis. Now, again, don't take the painting as an example. Go on to Crooked Dice because you'll see like a painting that's 1,000 times better than this. That's just Militia 2, the little sort of ex-military unit. And this is a portion of Militia 1, including a guy that's remarkably like the traffic warden from Threads. And of course, the Road Warrior style guy there himself as well. And the Last of Us, as I call him, the Last of Us kind of guy. Now that's literally just 8 figures. That's two sets that you can pick up, or you can get them as individuals. There are a host of them. So make sure and check out crookeddice.com to get looking at all the stuff that's there. I am painfully aware that we have now officially kept Karl for like, I think, nearly a full 20 minutes longer than he wanted to be here today.
Yeah, it was good.
Yeah, but you know what? We haven't sang a song this morning. We haven't gone silly. It's all been very constructive.
I had a dance number planned.
You would not believe the messages and whatnot that I've had. I've even said to Charlie at Warlord that the Warlord Warehouse guys are now expected to come up with a song, and his response wasn't, no, not a chance. His response actually was, is it okay if we parody a song that people would already know? So there we go.
Oh, we started crazy. Have you copyrighted this? You've got this.
I've sent a letter to myself stamped, and I've lodged details with my accountant. We've got a keyboardist and we've got a drummer.
Well, you got the voice of an angel as we established last week. So I mean, you're front man.
You know, I kind of see us being more of like an Isley Brothers kind of thing, where it's a shared responsibility.
See, my limit, I was thinking I'm more very much the Bez in this relationship. I've got maracas. That's it. That's all I'm allowed to say. Even if they're not in tune.
Oh no, based on some of the messages from the lady members of the audience and a couple of fellow members, I think if we didn't have you on at least a par at the front, we would be missing an audience.
You think?
Yeah, my mum was particularly taken.
Definitely my audience. I know my audience. You know, I'm in that.
Well, there we go. According to the stats, the viewers have been with us. They have been watching diligently, steadily throughout the whole of this. Whether or not we answered questions, we didn't have any. Maybe some will appear later. But there we go. We've done our bit. We've given you Apocalypse TV. I better put the box back for our parting shot. Make sure and join us next week, where I might have actually painted something that I'm not like completely embarrassed by. And yeah, if you've questions for next week, Karl and I will be doing a musical number next week, as well as talking about Tiny Fighting Men.
It'll be like Ziegfeld Follies next week. There'll be thousands of dancers behind me. I might try and get an elephant in on a podium.
Well, an elephant's fine because you don't have to socially distance from animals.
Right, okay, good.
But the dancers might have to be outside the window, and that's probably going to mean they're going to have to be on a couple of ladders as well. I don't know why, but I've always got the impression that window's an upstairs window.
No,
it's not.
No. This Cookie Towers is essentially a lovely garage extension thing on the side, isn't it? So it's all glamour.
At least you've got a window. My office doesn't have a window, so shut up. For the past 4 days in work, I've been painting two storerooms as well, neither of which have window or vents. So I'm like coming out at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, kind of like plucking flowers off the wallpaper. It's something shocking. I'm sure it's toxic and I really shouldn't be doing it, but you know, it's white paint. How bad can it be for me? Right.
It's on your singing voice, which is the important thing.
It's giving me those deep, gravelly baritone notes, which for some reason I have to try and say like a Welshman, which I don't know. Gonna have to do a Zulu song now as well. Right, you listen. Sorry, before you disappear very quickly.
Yeah.
How are you?
I'm good. It's been busy. Honestly, it's I can only thank people. We're getting loads and loads of new customers every day. I don't know if people are just sitting there and finding us for the first time. But it's been manic. I'm having trouble keeping up, to be absolutely honest with you.
Good.
But we've had doing some great stuff with Peter every day. What did we do yesterday?
I don't know.
Murph folk, we were doing the fantasy profiles yesterday, so we did some good ones on that. We did some cracking ones this week. Yeah, it's all good. It's all good at the moment. It's just lots of plates in, but we're getting there.
Excellent, mate. And you're keeping all right yourself?
Yeah, good. Pretty sane, actually. I think.
Happy days. Well, when you know, sane's I think it's a relative term. It's relative. You certainly do your bit to keep us sane, and it's deeply appreciated. You're in our mind. You're one of the special people, and I mean that in a nice way, not facetiously.
I went to a special school, so that's almost definitely given.
No, you're an awesome bloke, and listen, again, really appreciate that you taking the time out. I mean, you know, I think it's a case, if the internet died and we weren't able to do this, I'm afraid you'd still suffer me ringing you on a Saturday morning just for a wee natter.
You'd be pressed up against the window.
Dude, listen, you see the minute that there's boats or planes aren't going to risk, like, you know, causing me to get sick and die. We will definitely come over and annoy you for a weekend.
I think you'd definitely come over like that, and then I demand the flash mob dancing sequence at that point.
Yeah, do you know what? I know some people who would be right up for that.
Really?
Yeah.
You get to see my my comedy rhythm now. I'm very much like Steve Martin in The Jerk.
Do you know what? Well, I'm sure we'll find a tune that works too. Or if we do it in TikTok, we can make it look later like you were actually kind of good.
Can we fix that post?
Right, folks, listen, thanks for watching. And if you're watching this later on, as many of you always seem to do, thanks for watching it later on. Give it a thumbs up, give it a like. Head over, like Crooked Dice's page on Facebook. Go over to the website, buy some stuff, because Karl really doesn't need a day off and can do with packing orders 7 days a week. I mean, look at him. He's far too happy. It's lockdown, and look at the smile on this guy's face. As ever, we will be through the rest of the week. I don't know if I'll post any more Crooked Dice stuff today. We've given you nearly an hour of Crooked Dice this morning. So what I might do this evening is post up some painted minis with links to where you can go and buy them yourself. And, you know, give Karl a day off. Take tomorrow off, Karl.
That'd be lovely. But you probably won't. I'll be doing writing tomorrow. That's my writing day.
God love you. Well, we love you anyway and appreciate everything that you're doing there, mate. As always, you're an absolute wee legend. With that, folks, we will swip to the credits and leave you lovely people to enjoy the rest of your day. Whatever day this is on the new calendar, I don't know. Bye-bye from me and bye-bye from him.